to today's webinar. We're going to talk about email security defenses, both information for email administrators and also for employees. This webinar will be recorded, is being recorded, so feel free to use this in follow-up. Part of this, if not all, would be very useful to distribute for employees because that's part of the content today. So I want to thank many long-term clients who are in attendance, and for many of you, this is your first exposure to PBSI. Our goal for each of the webinars we do is to provide free education, and specifically today, email is a really important topic and increasingly attacked. So we're going to focus on, for email administrators, what key settings to set, and for those of you who are PBSI clients and we manage your Office or Microsoft 365, know that we've already made the administrative settings that we're recommending. So if you're a PBSI client, you can ignore the email administration settings. We've done that on your behalf. We're going to talk about fundamentals of email security, how to spot dangerous emails, and some specific options that we recommend for Microsoft 365 for security. I tend to talk quickly. Today we have a lot of content to go through, and we'll be finished in 30 minutes, so I'll speak quickly. If you aren't listening, you may miss some content, so I apologize for my speed. For those of you who aren't familiar with PBSI, we provide technology and security services for hundreds of organizations in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I am very blessed. You've heard me say this before if you're a client, that the great majority of our staff have been with PBSI for a long time, and I know that knowledge helps clients. Very fortunate to be associated with an organization with so many good people. And those of you who are clients, I know that. So we focus on security monitoring. Today, we're going to talk about email. So the internet's a dangerous place. You know that. If you've seen other PBSI webinars, you've heard me say this. And I'm going to do a demonstration of a dark web exposed password check for this reason. One of the key things that makes email so hackable and so dangerous is that there are billions of exposed passwords out there. I'm going to demonstrate that real quickly. So I've already done my two-factor authentication to get into this site. And what you're seeing on my screen, there are 7.1 billion compromised credentials out there, and 1.2 of them have been exposed. This shows where attacks typically come from. Plenty of attacks come from within the United States, but it may be no surprise to know that great majority of attacks are coming from outside of the country. What I'm going to do real quickly is a demonstration of a search, which we can do for any of you for free. So if you want us to do this search, just let us know by email or reply to this webinar. We can search your domain. What I'm going to do now is search for pbsinet.com, and it shows there are 96 exposures. Yes, PBSI employees. This is an unavoidable thing. So here's a person who hasn't worked for PBSI for many years. Here's me. So the idea here is that there are email addresses that have been exposed out there, and we can do an export. The important thing to understand is that because there have been exposures, the fact is none of us can be assured that our passwords are not compromised. So what that means is if a password has been compromised, a hacker can use that same combination of email address and password on any site in the world, including your Microsoft 365 account. And in fact, that happens with some frequency. So important to understand, the person who gets their password exposed likely did nothing wrong. It's simply what happens when you put, you or me, your email address and password on a site with a password, then the site gets hacked, and it can never be taken back. So previously used passwords, when reused, you just start to create dangerous events. And it's really hard to make sure that staff understand this, but I encourage everybody to don't reuse passwords. Use a password manager. That's not the topic of today, but the point here is that the fact that these passwords have been exposed means that password reuse among our employees create a danger that our email gets hacked, as well as a danger for the employees that their Amex account or their 401k account gets hacked. This second, I'm just going to mention, this is interesting. You'll get receive a PowerPoint slide deck also, and this link goes to a very interesting article that describes how the bad guys are putting their wares for sale on the dark web, and they've taken comments from that dark web site where buyers and sellers meet. Somebody says, I need a hacker for $2,000. Another one says, break this site for $10,000. Another says, can you collect information from a competitor's website? Another says, can you delete reviews? $300. So this is a buyer and seller marketplace, and it tells you that if you want to, you being anybody with nefarious intent, you can find budgetable and easy ways to go about compromising security. So what that means to us is we need to have our security house in order, all of us. This slide describes the overall context of security. We secure our perimeter, we protect our data, we monitor our endpoints, that's our PCs and laptops. We provide security training, and the focus today I have read is email security, and that's what we're going to focus on, and we monitor our network. So within the context, we're going to talk about email. This screen shows that by far the largest attack vector, in other words, the way people get into and compromise a network, is through email. So protecting our email and knowing how to do it is really important. So that's kind of the background. So administrators, and again, for PBSI clients, the settings we're recommending here, we've already done for you. With this one exception at the front, clients may accept or not accept a recommendation for multi-factor authentication, but Microsoft recommends, PBSI recommends, and if you use Microsoft 365 and you don't have multi-factor authentication invoked, we recommend you set it up. And we will do that for you and with you if you're a PBSI client. There's no cost to do it. It simply means that a second device, usually a phone, is involved either with an authenticator app or a text to make sure at least every 60 days that you are really you. And that prevents long-term attacks from taking place. Another security setting is, actually this isn't a security setting, I'll talk about this more later, is implement the $2 a month option for every email address called Microsoft Defender for Office 365. It used to be called Advanced Threat Protection, ATP. This provides click protection. I'll demonstrate, time permitting, later exactly how this works, but that's a really key component, the most important security product on the market for email defense. Administrators set a transport rule to block auto-forwarded emails. Why is this true? You have seen, I would bet, as I have seen, periodic emails from somebody who you think, why did they send this email to me? It's an invoice. It's something that might not be expected, but it could be true. It's a purchase order. And what's happened is somebody has hacked that person's email and used their contact list to send out a spam email that's got malware included. Well, what they also do, they being the bad guys, this is a well understood principle, is that when somebody's email is hacked, they set a rule in that person's email to auto-forward emails to themselves so that if they send a bad email, so the unaware hacked person sends an email to their contact list saying invoice attached, everybody who replies to that email that information is never going to reach the emailer because the receipt will be auto-forwarded. So we can set that to prevent blocking auto-forwarded emails. It's an important element. And then also email encryption. There's an option, again, a $2 a month option in 365, which permits you to encrypt outgoing emails. Hopefully everybody knows that we are not permitted under HIPAA and under other security protocols to include protected information in an email unless it's encrypted. That's social security numbers, credit card numbers. It's open for hack on the internet. So there's an option that if you don't have this available for your human resources or your whoever does your payroll or whoever sends information to your accountants, this is something you can put on just a small number of email addresses in your organization. So these are some things that we recommend. Email administrators, we see this a lot where email can be configured to tag messages as external. So you'll see this message originated from outside our organization. It's just a heads up. We can do the same thing for emails that are sent. When I'm typing in a name in my to or my copy in my email, when I'm sending a new email, if I include somebody who's not a PBSI employee, it highlights that for me, says this is going externally. Just small things to help prevent unintended mistakes. Make sure every employee has a unique email user account. If not, if you have front desk or office at and a bunch of people share it, you just add to the likelihood that one person's compromise will extend to other people. Plus, it's hard to then track down where a problem originated. A recommendation for all business clients is avoid free or consumer email systems. Many people use Gmail or the like, and it's not that those aren't perfectly legitimate solutions, but most products just don't provide for the ability to manage security in the same way. We're a Microsoft 365 partner, and it's not that I care so much about Microsoft, but we've just become really familiar with how security is implemented and how it's managed using a product that's intended for business use. And then train all employees how to recognize phishing emails. There are some great tools. I'm going to talk about one today that we offer called KnowBefore that provides training and ongoing training for email recognition. And this webinar today is in part doing this exact thing, and that's what I'm going to go to now. What are the basic important safety principles of evaluating dangerous emails? And I've got 5 principles I'm going to mention. And then I'm going to go through some examples. So principle number 1, really important. Because I get an email from somebody I quote know doesn't mean it's okay. The difference between unsolicited and solicited email is really important. If you receive an email from Ray and it's a webinar invitation, well, okay, you might expect that from Ray, and that might not be considered, but truly it is unsolicited. If you receive an email from Ray and it is something out of context, look at this invoice, thought of you, something like that. Wait a minute, that's unsolicited. Why would Ray send me that email? If you, on the other hand, solicit Ray, you ask a question, you get a reply from Ray, well, that's very unlikely. A solicited email reply is unlikely to be a problem. But if it's unsolicited, stop, pay attention, even if it's from a known source. Anything unusual about this email, hover over the sender name to check for small spellings in the email address. Why did that person send this email to me? There's a run-through set of things I'll talk about in a bit that you can look at. But first of all, look at unsolicited email differently and more carefully. General principle, antenna up. Does anything seem amiss with any email I receive? If there's anything that causes me pause about why would I get this, time of day, recipient list, brief content like thought of you or check this out or something like that, out of character, why would this person send this to me? Usually it's something you just want to stay away from. If you want to find if this is true, don't reply to that email, but instead, if you want to send an email to the person who sent it to you, send them an email where you type their address into your email and say, hey, just got an email from you. Did you really send this to me? And then you'll know. Misspellings, grammar mistakes, phrasing, colors, formatting, font variations. Not all bad emails come from non-native English speakers, but frequently they do, and you can spot things that are unusual. Okay, antenna up. 3, don't get news from your email. I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I will never forget of news that came to me, and I thought, oh, I didn't know that was true. Well, it wasn't. It appeared to be from Fox News or CBS News or whatever, but it was in an email. If you want to know if something is true, go to the website, the vendor site, and get your news from the news source. Don't click in an email. And particularly, the bad guys love to use current events, product releases, tax time, Olympics, disasters, holiday messages. Anytime a disaster happens somewhere in the world, you'll start getting emails, if you're typical, saying, donate now, or you can help, or some variation on that theme. Anything that would be of interest to a consumer. Right now, Likely some of you may be receiving emails about the trial that's going on and information about it. Don't click in the email. Go to the website. Social media is well understood. Facebook and the like are just rife with phishing scams. Facebook and the like can't vet every ad. They may vet the advertisers, but then beyond that, the content can't be vetted completely. And when you receive a forward from your friends, I just don't open it. Even though I think it's probably okay, I just stay away. Anything too good to be true, designed to make me curious, who wants to make me curious? So just stay away from clicking in emails that contain news. Another thing, I basically no longer use unsubscribe. So if you get an email from Macy's, and you're sure it's Macy's having a one day, and you want to unsubscribe because you've requested Macy's emails at some point in time in the past, then go ahead and unsubscribe. But generally speaking, there's a better way. Instead of unsubscribe, you can choose junk and block sender. That's the way it works in Outlook. You right click, choose junk, block sender. There's a similar facility in Gmail and other programs. But what that does is it accomplishes the same thing as unsubscribe without notifying the sender. So unsubscribe sends a message back to the sender that says, here's a real email address. First of all, now they've verified your email address, that says they no longer want to receive these emails, and it might communicate to them information that they're able to then use in future attacks. So scammers are intentionally creating elaborate ruses. So if you want to unsubscribe, right click, choose junk and block sender. Very useful thing to know. All right, last safety principle, and maybe the most important thing that we can train all employees and learn ourselves, is how to evaluate a fake address. So a URL is the name given to the description in a browser. In the top of a browser, you'll see www. following information. So the key part that you need to evaluate is the domain name. So the content of any URL always starts HTTP or HTTPS. It's understood that HTTPS means that this email is, or this link is encrypted. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's safe. It just means that it's encrypted. So the bad guys now are using the S. Doesn't mean that it's safe just because there's an S. After the double slash then comes the host name, which is almost always www. Following the www is the domain name. That's what we want to learn to look for. It starts after the first period, which is www, and ends before the first single slash. That's the domain name. So in this example, example.com is the domain name because there is the first single slash. In this case, this whole set of stuff is all the domain name ending with first slash. So what's important is that we learn what the bad guys do. They spell something wrong, like they might rename domain to DOMAN, or it's simple things, but hard to spot. Prefixes, suffixes, reversing order. So google.com, nobody's going to put com.google, but they might put orders.google.com, where Google doesn't really have an orders.google.com. So some of these can be very difficult to evaluate because they're clever. And if you have any question and you think you should click or respond, then instead of clicking and responding, do not copy and paste. Go to that vendor's website, preferably, or to your browser URL, and type in what you think the correct URL is, and you'll find out if it's going to a real source or not. And if you're doing it by typing it into your browser, it doesn't carry the same risk because it's the link that you're asked to click on that generally provides bad content. So learn how to evaluate a domain name. So those are some fundamentals. There are some other caution steps. If an email asks for confirmation or reset, never click, even if they know some information about you. Instead, go to the vendor's website. If there's really a need, your account will have that information. Just don't click on an email. Hovering over links, checking spellings, unextended content, evaluating, is this exact sequence really correct? If you think it might be legitimate, go to the site. Always think twice. Okay, common spoofs, we've talked about this a little bit. Confirm your account before the bad guys do, reset your PIN number, problem with your W-2. I mean, these are just some well used, not all of them are new, but they're always new variations. Your account needs renewal or reset. Here's a resume, here's something that you think might be interested. Just recognize that if it's unsolicited, stay away. Text alerts, increasingly, I've been getting texts from Amazon. No, they're not from Amazon, but it appears that they are. They even know one of my family members. No, it's not real, it's a scam. Don't click on a text. Okay. And if you have any concern, you've made a mistake. Oh, I think I just clicked on something I shouldn't have. It started asking me for my social security number, and now I'm thinking, I shouldn't have done that. Change the password associated with that account. That's the safe thing. Once your password's changed, any access they had is cut off. Okay, so those are some common steps. Now I'm going to go quickly through some examples. Some of these are new, some of these are not new at all, but some of the things remain. So here's an incoming fax. And if it's not in the format where your fax to email shows up, it's somebody else's format, don't click on it. So if you had clicked on this one, you would have been then next exposed to this Bitcoin message that says, you've been hacked, and get your files back or avoid damage by paying here. You never want to see that screen. If you do, contact PBSI or your support organization immediately. Do not click on anything. Security warnings, just examples. Your login limit has been reached. These are all real emails. They're just not, they're frauds. This word fraud has been added by me. So it looks like it's from Amazon. Is that you? It's like simple. They just want me to say yes, don't click on that. Here's one from, quote, Microsoft. It's not Microsoft. And if you see the address up here that's highlighted, it's not at all. You can see quickly, easily on this one that it's not legitimate. But the interesting thing here is it says I need to change my password, and I can click here simply to avoid that. Keep current password. Well, that's what I want to do. No, stop. It's not what I want to do. So these are just examples. Shipping confirmation. Everybody wants to know that they have a package that's being delivered, UPS, FedEx. These aren't real. These happen all the time. Stay away from shipping confirmation. Go to the website. Now, if you have set up tracking on a delivery that you've ordered, then that email you might think of as solicited. So if you get an actual, do you want to track this? Here's your confirmation from Amazon, whoever. Those are generally safe and fine. Just make sure they're solicited and you know that you placed the order in question. Here's what I mentioned, fake news emails. These are ones that came to my inbox and I copied them at the time. This was the guy who was acquitted by a grand jury for driving into the crowd in Charlottesville. I remember looking at it and thinking, really? Well, it never happened. Same thing, the CEO of United Airlines was fired over a controversy of a passenger on a plane. And I thought, wow, but it never happened. And if I had clicked on this, I'd have had bad results. So just be really careful. Don't get your news from email. So here's banking emails. Not all banks do this. There are variations, but so we bank with Huntington, and you can see that in this legitimate email, it says I have a statement available, but there's nothing to click. So it knows that the right way to do this safely is to go to their site and access what they've told me is now available. Here's one that's a bad email from, it's not from Citibank, of course, but if I hovered over this email, I can see more information about that URL, but generally bank emails and credit card emails generally will not provide a place to click, though that's not universal. Taking advantage of, quote, trusted sources. So here was after a disaster. This email came out to donate from Goodwill. Just pick your amount. If you clicked on one of these, that would have been a bad result because this email isn't from Goodwill. Here's one that came fairly recently that said, it had this real nice thing that said trusted sender at the top of the email, which made me think, oh, this is a trusted, wait a minute. No, it wasn't. It wanted me to play an audio message. So here's receiving an e-signature, and a lot of us now get requests to sign documents electronically. And again, think of the concept of solicited or unsolicited. If you know something is coming and you expect it, then go ahead. But if it's something you aren't looking for, don't click the sign button or improve your credit score or whatever. They're all of the same ilk. Just be cautious. So those are some of the common issues that happen. Okay, I'm going to do a very quick demonstration of what I mentioned earlier. I believe is the most important security product to protect an email that's available on the market. And I'm not trying to promote Microsoft. I'm simply saying they've done something here that's really useful. Everybody who has a Microsoft email address in the cloud should have this in place. And hopefully, if you're a PBSI client, you already have this. We've certainly recommended it to you. You add $2 a month option called Microsoft Defender for 365. It's not the Defender that comes on Windows. It's not Windows Defender. It's a special thing, and it provides click protection. It used to be called Advanced Threat Protection, ATP, and for some unknown reason, Microsoft decided to rename it about a year ago. And I'm going to demonstrate that real quickly, how this works. I'm going to go to my own inbox, and I'm going to go to a subfolder that I keep for IT security, and where I keep known bad emails. And here are some of the examples that you just saw. This was a bad email that came in, so I saved it so I can use it for demonstration. But I'm going to use the same demonstration unit that I always do. So here is an email that allows me to, I know this is a bad link. I want to use the same. I hate testing the waters, even though I'm protected. I want to make sure I don't click on something that's not unexpected. So, yeah, here we go. So I'm going to click on, no, I don't want that screensaver one, pardon me. I want this one. Yeah, okay, so this is a bad link. Anyway, the same thing should happen with all of these. I just really don't want to test anything. I already know what's going to happen here. The idea is you get a link in an email, and this one might say free gift card. And when I click on it, because we pay for this $2 a month at PBSI on all of our addresses as well, Microsoft does something special. This Microsoft Defender, if I have that in place, when I click, which I haven't done yet, on a bad link, it sends every click through what they call a sandbox in the cloud. It fully explodes everything that's going to happen. And instead of depending on us knowing in advance that this is bad, it actually learns that it's bad, and you'll see what happens. I click now, and it goes out, and Microsoft adds this precursor called safe links, and that's how you know that you have this in place. And immediately, instead of sending me on to wherever I was trying to go with that click, it says, that was malicious, stop. And that's what you get when you have this $2 a month click protection in place. I won't demonstrate, but you can also, for anybody who sends protected information, if you're a healthcare office and you want to send to a referring provider information that has patient information, or if you're a person who does payroll for your organization and you want to send information with employee social security numbers, this is a really useful thing. Add a $2 a month option called Azure Information Protection, AIP, and you can send encrypted outgoing emails. This would not be for everyone. This would be for a small number of employees. This Defender would be for all employees. Okay, important. So we're almost finished. I want to mention one of you asked an interesting question that hopefully you'll recognize. I'm not going to take offense. One of the questions you asked during the registration process was, would like to have training that is engaging and not just PowerPoint slides. Well, okay. The training you're getting today is, quote, just PowerPoint slides. However, we sell and we use at PBSI this product called Know Before. It's fantastic. New content all the time. It's a combination of phishing emails, training and security emails, really short but helpful videos, testing so that employees get rated. And the important thing is it happens ongoing. So once a quarter, once every 6 months, you have a chance to test employees, and we can set this up for you. It's $3 a month per employee email, and it includes HIPAA training, it includes OSHA training. It's really quite an effective, and they are the largest provider in the world. And you can't sign up directly for KnowBe4 unless you have a minimum number of seats, but with PBSI, we can sign you up even if you have only a handful of employees. So it's something, if you'd like information about, ask us. So summarizing, we talked about 5 email safety principles: solicited and unsolicited, antenna up, don't get your news from email, careful with unsubscribe, learn how to evaluate a URL, and some other caution steps, and considering click protection. So that is all I have today, and it's time to be finished. So I'm going to end today's webinar and stop recording. I want to thank you for your attention.